Forced perspective, a basic primer for the model railroader. What is forced perspective? One definition says, forced perspective is a way to create an environment that appears larger than it truly is. The use of different sized objects and variations in the distance between them gives the illusion that things are in correct perspective. Forced perspective can be a valuable tool for the model railroader to help increase realism and the perceived depth of the layout. Here in the mountain area of the Richlawn Railroad, a number of forced perspective techniques have been used to make the area look deeper than it actually is. What are some of the techniques of selling the illusion of forced perspective? Number 1, distant items appear smaller than foreground items. Number 2, distant lines appear to converge. And number 3, distant colors appear to be lighter or faded. First, we'll look at using smaller items in the distance to give the illusion of depth. When using smaller items to convey depth, it's helpful to use a variety of items. I use a number of items including structures, vehicles, trees and bushes, and rocks. First, let's take a look at structures. Structures don't have to be buildings, although buildings are an excellent way to convey height because people intuitively know how high a building is based on the number of floors or stories. Here, partway up the mountain, we see an in-scale trailer, an in-scale portal. Farther up the mountain, we see a small-scale foam house. And farther still up the mountain, we can see a water tower, which is smaller still. The water tower also has a blinking light on the top to help draw the eye up the mountain. Next, let's take a look at vehicles. Vehicles are also an excellent way to convey distance because, like buildings, people intuitively know the size of vehicles, such as a car, a truck, or a tractor. Here we can see up by the trailer a car, a small truck, and also a semi-trailer coming out of the portal. Farther up the mountain, we see a smaller vehicle, a tractor, which is made from an actual charm from a charm bracelet. And over on the other side of the mountain, up here, we also have another small vehicle made from a charm, a pickup truck. Next, we'll take a look at using trees and bushes to convey the illusion of depth. Unlike vehicles and structures, trees and bushes don't have any standard size. However, they're very helpful in conveying the illusion of depth. Here at the bottom of the mountain, the trees are larger HO scale. As we move up the mountain, they are smaller in scale. And further up the mountain, they're even smaller still. At the top of the mountain, the puffball trees also have finer ground foam on them, helping sell the illusion of depth. Rocks are the last item we'll look at to help convey the illusion of depth by using larger rocks in the foreground and smaller rocks in the background. This is why I don't like to use rock molds to make rocks, because they're basically all the same size. Here at the base of the mountain, I've actually hand carved the rocks out of plaster. You'll notice that farther up the mountain, the rocks are smaller. And at the top of the mountain, the rocks are smaller still, being carved out of foam instead of plaster. So we've looked at using smaller items in the distance to convey the illusion of depth. Certainly there are many other items that can be used. Next, we'll look at how distant lines appear to converge and how we can use that to make our layouts look deeper. One of the most popular and effective ways to give the illusion of depth on your layout is by using roads, where the road is wider in the foreground and narrower in the background. I don't have any such roads here on the mountain area of my railroad. However, I was able to get the similar effect here in the waterfall area. Notice that the two forks at the top are narrow, and as the forks come together, it is wider, very similar to the way a road would be. This can help give the illusion of depth. The last item we'll look at for selling the illusion is how colors appear to be lighter, faded, or have a bluish tint in the distance. Here in the mountain area, I've used colors to convey the illusion of depth. Down near the bottom, the colors are darker and more intense. As we move up the mountain, we can see that the colors are lighter. And towards the top of the mountain, they're lighter still and have a gray or bluish tint. Notice also that the sky near the horizon also has a grayish tint. As hard as we work using the different techniques of forced perspective to convey depth, there are a number of spoilers that can ruin the effect. Here on the mountain, we've used a number of forced perspective techniques to give the illusion of depth, including the water tower, which is much smaller than HO scale. If we had a wall switch here, it would spoil the effect. That's because our brain intuitively knows the size of a wall switch, and from that can tell that the water tower is much smaller than HO scale. In situations like this, it's best to try and mask the offending article or move it if possible. If that's not possible, then it's important during the planning stage to make sure that there are no spoilers in view. Another type of spoilers are foreign objects. Here the root beer can definitely spoils the forced perspective effect. It's important during taking pictures that you have no foreign objects on your layout. I'm a real stickler about this and insist that no one put anything on the layout that doesn't belong on the layout, not only because of the forced perspective issues, but also to avoid possible spills or damage to the layout. The last spoiler we'll look at is using the wrong sized objects in the wrong locations. Here it's obvious that the HO scale bulldozer dwarfs the N-scale semi-truck. This may seem obvious, but it's surprising the number of times that wrong sized objects can appear in the wrong location in a forced perspective scene. Just be on guard for this and make sure that everything is in the right scale and the right position. Using forced perspective on your railroad is a fun and easy way to fool the eye and to create perceived depth. If you're not already using forced perspective, I highly recommend that you give it a try. I'm sure that you'll be pleased with the results, and so will the visitors that come to see your railroad.